The Striker guide is finally here, guys. Striker is an extremely strong class, very simple, very straightforward, extremely fun to play. Today, I'm going to be showing you guys a complete guide to Striker. I get asked about Striker all the time on my stream. I originally planned on making a really nice, professionally edited guide video, but unfortunately, I just do not have the time to do so. So what I did instead was I just went into Trixion and I am going over each part, all the important details one by one with you. It's going to be a little bit more like me personally walking through both the specs, Eso Flurry Striker as well as Deathblow Striker, and holding your hand, walking you through it, and hopefully answering every single question that you could possibly have with this class. As always, I'm streaming live on Twitch almost every single day of the week, so come find me on that platform. If I can't answer any of your questions in the comment section below, I usually am able to answer every Striker related question on Twitch. So without further ado, let's go over the best class in Lost Ark. All right, so let's go over the more popular spec, Deathblow Striker, which is easily one of the best classes in the game right now, one of the best specs in the game. Pretty simple here. You have a meter, you use your generators, which are my QWERD, and then you dump it with your spenders, which are in my case is my AS or F. So as you can see, I have full meter here, and I can dump the meter in one skill, and you're just gonna deal extra damage if you have more orbs filled, 2, 3, and then 4. So you want to make sure you get max meter here, and then you dump it on a spender. Typically you're using 2 skills to build meter here. If you want to play it properly, as you can see, 2 skills to build full meter, 2 generators, and then a spender, and then your last generator here, you're going to have to use all 3 generators, and then an X amount of auto attacks depending on how much specialty stat you have, and then you use your spender. So you have 3 spenders and 5 builders. So in a nutshell, one of the reasons why Deathblow Striker is super strong right now is because of the amount of burst damage they could deal in a short period of time. So Tiger Strike here is a all or nothing home run skill. If it crits, which you will have an 82% crit chance with, if it crits, you're going to deal ridiculous amounts of damage, way more than your even awakening skill, right? So it is out of the non-awakening skills, it is one of the hardest hitting single skills in the game, okay, outside of awakening skills. So you have your surge, which is obviously the hardest, I believe it's the hardest hitting skill for blade, or in the game it's the blade surge skill. And then with striker, it's lightning tiger strike, which I believe is like 2 or number 3. So again, it's really strong because all it takes is that right there. As you can see, that's probably about a 4-second period to deal really high amounts of damage. And then you have your 8-second rotation where you follow that up with 2 more generators and then a second spender. And the second spender is multiple hits, but if every single hit crits for your Tiger emerges, it does deal damage that is fairly close to lightning tiger strike. So with that, there are 2 major handicaps or weaknesses to Deathblow Striker. The first is the movement. You have to be able to hit the back and land back attacks. That obviously goes without saying for every melee back attacking class. But the issue is that when you have all your cooldowns, you can use your Storm Dragon kick for mobility. But after that, you don't have any other skills that you could use for mobility. These are all generators. So if the boss is moving around, you have to move around with it because you need your Storm Dragon kick to land to get your third meter to get your third spender off at max gauge. So obviously if you get into a situation where you're going through your rotation here, this is the rotation which we'll go over in a little bit. I've just used my 2 spenders and now I've got to use this again. If I can't land this, then I can only land 2 generators for my third spender, and as you can see, I won't have full meter, which is still fine. Blast Formation will still do respectable damage, but it won't do the full amount. So 3 spender striker, which is pretty much the only striker right now for Deathblow. You do have a little bit of that handicap because as you can see, I don't have any movement speed. My movement speed is very low. It's pretty much base unless I get the rage to proc with this, the rage rune to proc with this. and I get a little bit of movement speed right here with this skill as well. So outside of that, if you've already begun your rotation, you literally have to run around with one of the slowest movement speeds in the game to try and position yourself in the back. So you can imagine if I don't have Storm Dragon kick up and then I got to move all the way around, do this. Sure, it's a 4-second window, but a 4-second window, as you guys know in Lost Ark, sometimes is not enough time for a boss to just turn, right? So that is weakness number 1. Weakness number 2 with Deathblow Striker is that outside of Moonflash Kick, all of your protection, all of your CC protection is in your spenders. Having them on your spenders, amazing, but you don't have any protection on your Q, W, R, and D. So outside of E, outside of Moonflash Kick, you don't have any protection on your other builders, which means that if you get interrupted by, let's say, using Sky Shattering Blow, that gets interrupted, you do not have a full meter to use your Lightning Tiger Strike. You're going to have to burn this, but then if you burn that, obviously, like you can burn that at the start of rotation, but it's just a lot less forgiving if you're missing skills. So this is a class where if you're missing, if you're getting interrupted, if you're a little bit less experienced with the raid, your damage could drastically fall off because it's a very rotation focused class. But if you're landing everything and you really know the raids and you know the attack patterns, you can really pump damage. One thing to note with Deathblow Striker is that Tiger Strike, which is the majority of your damage, it's an all or nothing skill, right? So if I have this up, I have about an 82% chance of the crit. If that doesn't crit, the whole thing doesn't crit. So as you can see, that was only like 17.8% damage, and that was with my Lazenith buff. So let me try that again. So on a non-crit, that's 14 million damage, 13 to 14 million damage. On a crit, it's 45 million damage. So this is like a huge difference, and that's pre-synergy. Okay, so the next thing we're going to go over are the stats. Very simple here. You're going to take crit on your necklace and everything else goes into spec. Really no explanation needed there. We're going to go over the bracelet here in a second. But one thing that I need you to know is that for every 100 spec, the esoteric skill damage, which is pretty much all your damage as a striker, all your damage comes from your spenders, which are your esoteric skills. Every 100 points of spec is equal to 3.22% damage. Okay, 3.22% damage for every 100 spec. So this is a class where you just have to pump everything into spec. Not only are you gaining meter gain, meter generating ability, but you're also dealing damage. Now, the other thing that I am going to share with you that's probably going to be put on the screen right now are the spec thresholds for your meter gain. From 1764 to 1801 specialty, you'll have to auto attack once between your builders and blast formation in order to get full meter. So let me show you what that looks like. So we're going to set this to 1763. So we're just going to set that a little bit short. So here's what you're going to see. Once I go through my rotation, which I'll show you. Okay. That, if you don't know the rotation, just check out the rotation segment of this video and this will make sense. And now it's time for me to use my third spender. So I got to use QWR. And as you can see, that just leaves me just a little bit. One quick tap is still not enough. So it's going to be 2 auto attacks, okay? Or an auto attack that's being held down a little bit longer. That's what that means, okay? If I'm at 1764, okay? If I'm at 1764, as you can see, it's just one tap to top me off, okay? That goes all the way through to 1801 spec. So if I set this to 1801 spec here, okay, it's going to be the same thing. I'm forced to use one auto attack before I can go into it. Once I get to 1802, which would be the end game ideal, which you can only get to with bracelet, that gives me full meter without having to auto attack between. So I've listed the specialty thresholds here on the screen. From 1683 to 1728 specialty, you'll have to do a full punch kick auto chain. Here, I'll show you a little bit clearer. 1, 2, 3. You see how he does 2 punches, 1 kick, and 2 kicks, right? That's a full auto attack chain. So when you're at 1683, it will require 1 full auto attack chain And I'll show you that right here. 1683 to get your third spender off. So here we go. There's my 3 generators. There's the full auto attack chain. That's going to give me blast formation. And then we take that all the way up to 1728. Okay. And you're going to notice it is the same thing. It requires the full auto attack chain. So no difference between 1764 and 1801 outside of damage, of course. When it comes to meter generation, there's absolutely no difference. Anything under 1683, you're going to have to start another auto attack chain, a second one. 1576 spec being the minimum amount of specialty you need to top off your meter with 2 auto attack rotations. So if we're at 1576, it will require, there's my first builder, second builder, third builder, 1 2 3 1 2 3. Okay, so it's going to require 2 full auto attack chains. Anything less than that, I'm going to have to start a third auto attack chain, and that just is going to be too much time. The minimum requirement to be able to play Deathblow Striker effectively is you need to be able to generate full meter between your Sky Shattering Blow and Whisper of Lightning. That's part of the rotation first. That's part of the first rotation there. Oh, let me just set that back to 1700 for now. Okay. So Sky Shattering Blow into Whisper of Lightning, which generates full meter. And then you're going to have to, use Vicious Tiger into Moonflash Kick. Have that build full meter. Okay, that is the very minimum requirement to play this class. So one of the most commonly asked questions are how much spec is actually required to play this class? How much spec is it required to play a 3-spender? Well, to be honest, with the bracelet that's now out in the game, which gives you added specialization stat, you should really just be playing 3-spender out the gate as soon as you're able to build enough meter, which I'm going to tell you that number here in a second. As soon as you're able to build enough meter to get full gauge between two builders, you need to just be playing 3-spender all the way through, because it's just not cost efficient. It's not very effective for you to play a 2-spender build and put points and try to get your tripods for your sweeping kick maxed out and your blast formation maxed out, which is what would replace blast formation, and even getting a gem, right? Spending the silver, rolling, or just buying a gem outright. And at what point can you play 3-spender? Well, 1442 specialty technically is the number if you have 2 purple wealth runes. So the wealth runes that I'm talking about here are these wealth runes right here. These wealth runes. I only have 1. It is not mandatory to have 2 purple wealth runes to play Deathblow Striker. You only need 1. Now, if you want to play Deathblow Striker and you only have 1442 specialty, which is very, very low, by the way, then you will need 2 purple wealth runes. 1509 is the number that's required to play this class effectively. And again, 1509, you also have to move your runes around. They should be on screen right now for you to see. But 1509 is the minimum requirement if you only have 1 purple wealth rune. Okay, 1 purple wealth rune, 1509 is the number. And after 1509 and higher, you never need the purple wealth rune ever again for endgame content. You just don't need it. The reason why you do not need it is right here. Okay, so the first spender you're going to be using is Tiger Strike, and that's going to require your Sky Shattering Blow and your Whisper of Lightning. Okay, your rune placement is Wealth Rune on the Sky Shattering and Blue Rune on the Whisper of Lightning. So I would go Sky Shattering into Whisper of Lightning. That's going to give me full meter. And then I have the gold wealth rune, legendary wealth rune on my Vicious Tiger, and another blue rune on my Moonflash Cake. So that is enough for me to have full meter. So with that said, with just those 2 generators, I don't need an extra purple. I only needed 1 purple. So the next one, for the 3rd spender, you're going to be using Storm Dragon Kick, which you do not use a wealth rune to begin with. That's going to build a little bit of meter. Okay, and then you're using the purple wealth rune anyway, and you're using the gold wealth rune anyways. Okay, so as you can see, there is no cushion. There's no place for you to actually use that second purple wealth rune, which is why you don't need the second purple wealth rune. You only need it for when you're at between 1442 to 1509 spec, 1508 spec, and you're trying to play Deathblow Striker effectively at that spec range, which I don't think is really an issue for anyone, because it's really not difficult to get 1509 spec at the end of the day. Once again, the only time you're going to need that purple wealth rune is if you're between 1442 spec and 1508 spec. That's the only time you're going to really need it, outside of maybe balance, like low end balance content, which who cares about that, right? Okay, as far as the gear goes, it's hands down entropy. This set right here is tailor-made for Striker. Really nothing to explain here. Crit damage, crit rate, and back attack damage. Really nothing to explain there. As far as the bracelet goes, this is obviously not the best bracelet in the world. This is just what I have. Bracelet is super RNG, so to try and aim for like a best in slot bracelet, it's just not possible. What you absolutely do need is a relatively high spec roll. That is number one. Okay, not only do you deal more damage with spec, but also it will allow you to pass some of these spec thresholds that will allow you to build meter more effectively, especially for your blast formation. Now, at the end of the day, outside of spec, any damage roll that you really get outside of spec, like for example, circulate or ambush being really good, obviously one of the best that you can get, you're just going to want to stick with that. A crit roll is obviously not that bad either, but spec along with the damage rolls such as ambush, circulate is probably what you want to prioritize. Again, crit also really not bad here. As far as the cards go, Umar, Lazenith, this set is best in slot. This card set hands down outperforms Light of Salvation 30. I have both sets. I've tested them thoroughly. You can too with the Trixian testing, and I guarantee you will see that the Umar and Lazenith set definitely outperforms the Light of Salvation. All right, so as far as the engravings go, standard 5x3, you're gonna go Grudge, Keen Blood, Ambush, Deathblow, and Adrenaline. Now, an alternate engraving that you can get, what I honestly recommend for players that are trying to be a little bit more efficient with gold, is using Cursed Doll, over Keen Blunt Weapon. That will make this build significantly cheaper. The difference between Keen Blunt Weapon and Cursed Doll, I will show you right now. Okay, so this is with Keen Blunt. 45 mil. 45 mil. 45 mil, pretty consistent. 45 mil, pretty consistent. So occasionally you will see a damage reduction here. Well, I missed the crit there. 14%. Or excuse me, 14 mil. Okay, so we've got max adrenaline stacks here. We're outside of the Lazenith window. As you can see, 35 mil. That is the Keen Blunt procking right there. The Keen Blunt, 35 mil. Otherwise, it's going to be 44, 45 mil all the way through. Okay, and then we're going to swap this to, let's compare that to Cursed Doll. Okay, so here we go. Got my stacks, 43.7, 43.6, 16.6. So I did 2 mil damage more on the non-crits. Okay. I don't have my whisper buff up. Okay, so as you can see, the damage difference is like 1 to 2 mil top, not even 2 mil. It's like 1 to 2 mil, right? So with Cursed Doll, you have a little bit of a higher floor, but a lower ceiling. With Keen Blunt, you have a higher ceiling with a little bit of a lower floor. At the end of the day, it's really minimal when it comes to the damage difference. It's really not a big deal. I would highly recommend running Cursed Doll over Keen Blunt if gold is an issue. Now, if Striker is like your main and you want to min-max, definitely go Keen Blunt. I've gone Keen Blunt. I always will go Keen Blunt because it is my main class, okay? So there's that suggestion. Now, the other alternative that some people ask is replacing Cursed Doll, placing Adrenaline for Cursed Doll and keeping Keen Blunt. Now, this right here has the highest damage ceiling for Striker, but the issue is that you're losing 10% crit rate compared to the normal meta build. Normal meta build being what I showed you earlier, Adrenaline instead of Cursed Doll here. So you're essentially trading out 10% damage, attack powers, 10% damage versus 15% crit rate. Now, you have an 82% crit rate with Adrenaline on your Tiger Strike when you have your Whisper window up. 82%. Okay, so that is going to obviously fall below 70%. What is that? 68% roughly, give or take, 68% or so. 68% chance to crit. Now, that is really important for Tiger Strike, because Tiger Strike is an all or nothing skill. It's all or nothing. And if you ever parse your damage, you'll see that the raids in which you do not land your crits, your damage is significantly lower. If you're not landing crits on Tiger Strike, you're not going to Cruel Fighter if you have other good players on good classes in your raid. If you're critting on everything, it's your fight to lose when it comes to the Cruel Fighter battle. But if you're not critting, it's your fight to lose. So that extra 10% damage, my personal opinion, not really worth it. So as you can see right here with Cursed Doll, earlier we were at like 45 mil, right? This is like 49 mil, which is exactly that. This is the Keen Blunt proc. That didn't crit. 40 mil, another Keen Blunt proc. That's unfortunate. 40 mil, another Keen Blunt proc. Holy shit, that's unlucky. 50 mil. So it's gone. So we're doing like an extra 4 to 5 mil damage on each Tiger Strike pre-synergy. It's 10%. At the end of the day, it's 10% damage, right? So 45 mil, add 10% to that. That's what you're going to get. In my personal opinion, just not worth it. Now, this is definitely the best in slot build with Cursed Doll if... excuse me, let me pull that up. If you have a crit synergy in your party. So if you're in a static and you're always going to be with someone that has crit synergy, then Cursed Doll is definitely the way to go at that point. But in a min-max world, even where you get to handpick your comp, Adrenaline will outperform because of that extra crit rate. And you in an ideal world where you get to pick your synergies, you're gonna have you'll have a Gun Lancer and Blade as your teammates, right, outside of the support. So you're not gonna have that crit synergy. Doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but I would highly recommend running Adrenaline over Cursed Doll. So the next question is, what about 5x3 1x1 or 5x3 2x2 in the late game? So really what that comes down to is Adrenaline at 3 and then Cursed Doll being at 1, or Adrenaline at 1 and Cursed Doll being at 3. And the same thing applies for, let's say, you know, the level 2 engraving. You're going to interchange these. When it comes to the 5x3 2x2, it really doesn't matter which one you get. It's really not that big of a deal, because the difference is not as big as a 5x3 1x1. When it comes to a 5x3 1x1, I would still highly recommend having Adrenaline at 2, having Adrenaline at 3 and then Cursed Doll at 1. I think this is the play. To go over a little bit of math for you, the difference is 10% crit rate for 9% damage. Adrenaline 3 would give you a 15% crit rate and 9% damage, while Cursed Doll at 3 would give you 18% damage and 5% crit rate. Okay, that's combining the two, right? Adrenaline 3 giving you 15% crit rate and 9% damage is Adrenaline 3 plus Cursed Doll 1. Okay, so as you can see, Cursed Doll 1, you have 3% here plus 6% that you're getting from Adrenaline. That's 9%. That's where the 9% damage comes from. So, and I've put it on the screen right there for you guys to see via text rather than just hearing it, for those of you who are a little bit more visual with learning. As far as the 2x2 goes, now that the best in slot build would actually be Cursed Doll 3 and Adrenaline 2. And the reason why is because by the time the 5x3 2x2 is available, we're going to have more access to crit rate with level 2, level 3 gears, with bracelets. And the difference between Adrenaline and Cursed Doll, the difference in crit rate is only 5%. So again, it doesn't matter whether Cursed Doll is 3 or 2 at this point. Adrenaline is 3 or 2. But if you want a min-maxed answer, the answer to that would be Cursed Doll 3 and Adrenaline 2. Okay, so next we're going to go over these skills right here. All right, so Storm Dragon Kick is first. We're going to go 4 points into Storm Dragon Kick, and we're going to be picking up the Rage. This is going to give us the attack speed and movement speed, and we're going to go excellent mobility. This skill is a staple. Okay, it is a staple, and we need it for the mobility, and having this rune gives us a little bit more mobility because it's something that we really lack as strikers. Storm Dragon Kick is a staple skill, and with Adrenaline, each kick right here is going to give us one stack of Adrenaline, which is pretty important because 3 kicks into my Sky Shattering Blow into Whisper is going to give me full stacks, because by the time I charge Tiger Strike, that's going to give me my 6th and final stack. So Storm Dragon Kick, a crucial skill. in the build, and we go excellent mobility. The next skill we have is Sky Shattering Blow. This is your counter skill. It looks like this. Okay, really quick kick right here. When you land this, we're going to get the Blessing of Wind proc, which gives us attack speed and movement speed. Another bonus. The first tripod, you could take excellent mobility. Some people actually take attack speed, but I don't really find this tripod being that much faster, so I personally prefer the first tripod here, getting that extra range. Makes it a little bit more forgiving. We go excellent mobility, Blessing of the Wind, maxing that out at 5. By the way, we max out Storm Dragon Kick. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. And we take Abundant Resources at level 5. This is a big esoteric meter generator, really important. That's going to allow us to build full meter, which I will show you right here. That's going to give us almost 1.5 orbs right here. Follow that up with the next skill, which is Whisper of Lightning in the rotation, which we will go over in a little bit. Gives us that full meter. Bam, and there it is. Okay, next skill we have is Moonflash Cake. This is our only other gap closer. That's what it looks like right here. Okay, this skill right here, we're going White Flame Kick for meter generation. Level 5, we're gonna go excellent mobility to bring the cooldown, to increase the range as well as lowering the cooldown, and then we go Full Moon Kick into level 5 for that extra damage. We're gonna be taking the Blue Wealth Rune. I apologize, I forgot to mention Purple Wealth Rune and Sky Shattering. Blue Wealth Rune here because that's all we really need. Anything more is overkill if you have the proper amount of spec. The other thing I want to mention is that this skill is the only builder that has super armor. Anytime that you're going to be attacking a boss and he's about to hit you, you will get interrupted on a majority of the skills on all of your other generators except for Moonflash Kick. It's your only protected skill. Pretty important there. Next one we have is your Vicious Tiger Dance. We're going to go Legendary Wealth Rune into this one. We take Concussion. You can take Focus Attack for extra damage. You're not going to put points into it, but there's no point. You could even take Crit Rate. Again, this is not a skill that hits very hard. Taking the stagger level to mid by taking Concussion is fantastic for actual rating scenarios. I would highly recommend taking Concussion, because if you don't, our stagger damage is pretty smudged. This at least makes us different, makes us somewhat decent. And if you're ever gonna bust solo Vaultin, you definitely need to take Concussion. Next we have Down Strike. We're gonna take this right here, followed by Efficient Strike, and we're gonna go ahead and max out Efficient Strike to bring that cooldown down lower. So you want to make sure, so with the proper tripods, Vicious Tiger Dance, you're gonna see it's a 2-part hit. Now each kick actually builds meter, and it's a big meter generator. It even builds more meter than Sky Shattering Blow, as you can see. So that's why we put the Gold Wealth Rune on it. Okay. The next skill we have is our first spender on the list. This is Esoteric skill Blast Formation. We're going to go 12 points into this, max this baby out. We go Weak Point Detection, Flame Explosion, Great Explosion, maxing all those tripods out. That's going to give us a lot of damage. And we're going to also go Gale Wind to make this come out a little bit faster. So to show you what Blast Formation looks like, it looks like this. This is kind of like a mini range skill that we could use. Ideally, you want to do it up close. And just so that you know, you can see the little orbs, the little things going past the target. Even like a thinner humanoid boss model, like for example Vicus or Vicus Gate 1, Gate 2, Gate 3, it will still hit the back if you're right up against the back of the target, so that's fine. The other thing to know is that the direction in which you use it at, it will hit the back. Even if the humanoid is like right in front of my character and it's exploding in front of him, because I applied it to the back, it's gonna register as a back attack. The only issue with Blast Formation is that of the 3 spenders, it is the least consistent skill because it takes a really long time. This segment right here is where it does the majority of the damage, and a lot of the times the boss is going to turn around by that point or move, and you're not going to even hit that part. So Blast Formation is definitely the least consistent, but it actually deals equal, maybe even more damage than Tiger Emerges. Again, it depends on how many crits you have, how I believe Blast Formation, if everything crits, it actually deals more damage than Tiger Emerges. So there's that. The next one is actually Tiger Emerges, next on the list. We're going to max this out, 12 points. I take Overwhelm for the extra stagger damage. If you don't want to take Overwhelm, then go ahead and take the Gale Wind to make this even faster. Quick Prep, single hit, Ascension, no brainer here. The good thing I like about Tiger Emerges is that it is a little bit of a gap closer. While you use it, you step towards the boss. Now, be careful with this, because if you use it and you're already directly behind the boss, again, certain characters like Vicus Gate 1, for example, Gate 2, whatever it may be, Gate 1 specifically, even or Vaulton with the wolves, when the wolf is doing a little swipe thing in front of him, if you're right behind the target and you use your Tiger Emerges, it will actually kind of push you into the boss, and you can get hit by his front side. It's kind of bad. So like when you use this skill, just be aware of that. So sometimes when that happens, I'll step back just a hair, and then I'll use Tiger Emerges to make sure I don't go through the target. The next skill that we have is one of our most important skills, Lightning Whisper. Esoteric Extortion, Quick Prep, and Fatal Lightning. You don't take any points into this because you don't need to. We're going to go Blue Well through in here, and we're going to take this to 10, nothing more. And this skill right here is our Crit Synergy skill. So it looks like this. Crit Synergy, I've got a 18% crit reduction on the target that is applied to the target for everyone in my party. That, along with Sky Shattering Blow, should give me enough meter to dump on the target. As you can see, Whisper right here just gives me a lot of meter, 2 2/3 right at the end of the day. And as you can see, a Lightning Whisper gives me just a ton of meter, even with the Blue Well through. Last skill we have is the staple skill, the most important skill, Lightning Tiger Strike. I call this Tiger Strike. We max this baby out. Single hit, weak point detection, charge kick to deal maximum damage, and we want to take the legendary Gale Wind, prioritize that on the skill. Definitely max the skill points out here, and this is it. This is a ranged attack that has stagger damage. You can hit this at range. You can hit it up close. Just a really, really, really good skill to use. This is the hardest hitting skill that we have in the game. And if you land these to the back and they crit, it's going to be hard to lose Cruel Fighter. All right, so let's go over the gems next. Okay, so you're obviously going to take the damage gems on your Esoteric Spenders, Blast Formation, Tiger Emerges, and of course, Lightning Tiger Strike. The rest will either go into cooldown, or you can take an additional damage gem, and I'll explain why. But let's go over the staple cooldown gems first. So we're going to take, of course, the Spenders once again, Blast Formation, Tiger Emerges, and Tiger Strike. Next, we're going to take Storm Dragon Kick here, which has a relatively high cooldown, and I will show you this right here. Even though it says 8 seconds, if you kick 3 times, it's actually higher. I believe pre-gem it's a 12-second cooldown. So taking that gem for Storm Dragon, also really, really important to make your rotation feel a little bit more crisp. Next, we're going to take Lightning Whisper. Obviously, we need that to line up with Tiger Strike. Next, we're going to take Moon Flash Kick. Again, another key builder in the rotation. And our last slot here will go to Vicious Tiger Dance, which is our other builder. So we have 1 gem slot remaining, and the option is to either go Sky Shattering Blow cooldown or to go Moon Flash Kick damage. Now, what I would recommend is taking Moon Flash Kick unless the gem is like level 9 or higher. If it's level 7, which is what a lot of endgame players will be at, I would rather take Moon Flash Kick for the extra damage. And the reason why is because, as you can see with Sky Shattering Blow, you're going to see the cooldown starts at 8 seconds, 8.5 seconds roughly, give or take, just pretty much 9. We see the 8 pop up there, right? If we were to take a level 7 cooldown gem on Sky Shattering Blow, it's only 1 second. It's only a 1 second difference. Now, the reason why we take Sky Shattering Blow as a cooldown gem is because of how it helps the rotation. So let me go over the rotation here. Here's the rotation. And as I come up, this Sky Shattering Blow is up again. Okay, I use this, boom, boom. And it's the 3rd time. As this comes up, you're going to see that I had about 2-3 seconds before I could use it again to start my rotation all over again, right? So it is that 3rd time in which you use Sky Shattering Blow where that cooldown gem will help. So as you can see, like a 1 second difference in that window isn't really the biggest thing. If you're talking about a 2-minute parse, yes, it could help. But in a real raid scenario, that extra second is like nothing. Very rarely are you gonna need that, right? Like outside of maybe Clown Gate 3 during the bingo phase, it's really not a big issue taking it. Okay, so so that's at level 7, right? So if I don't have it at all, you're gonna see the difference here. Go through the rotation again. All right, waiting. It doesn't matter if I'm waiting here because my Storm Dragon and Vicious Tiger, my Q and R, I had to wait for anyway. And it just started at 5-6 seconds instead of 4 to 5 seconds, right? It's just that 1 second difference. Now, if you can get it at level 10, that's when I would say definitely replace Moonflash Kick Damage Gem with it. I would definitely take Sky Shattering Blow at that point. And even then, it's a little bit debatable because you could value the damage from Moonflash Kick a little bit better than the cooldown gem. But to show you what it would look like with a level 10 cooldown gem, you're gonna see the rotation is actually much smoother because it is a 2-second difference. You can see it's already up, right? It's about a 2-second difference at level 10. As you can see, it's only I only had to wait like a second to 2 seconds to start my rotation right there, right? So the rotation just overall feels better when it's at level 10, but is it really mandatory in a real raid scenario? Not really. As you can see, that is lining up with my Whisper of Lightning, which is next in that rotation, right? So really up to you at the end of the day. Even at level 7, you can take Sky Shattering Blow. I personally prefer to take Moonflash Kick for the extra damage, unless I have a level 10 gem for Sky Shattering Blow, which I don't. When I get a level 10 cooldown gem for Sky Shattering Blow, I will definitely use the Sky Shattering Blow because sometimes you do kind of feel it. Sometimes there are scenarios where you're like, man, I wish my Sky Shattering Blow was just off cooldown a couple of seconds earlier. All right, so next is the rotation, and I'm going to go over this in real time first and then slow it down so that you guys could see what I'm doing. There's the rotation right there. So let's slow this down and show you exactly what's happening. First, I'm going to open with Storm Dragon Kick, all 3. That's going to give me 3 stacks of Adrenaline. I follow that up with Sky Shattering Blow for more meter gain, and then Lightning Whisper. If I already have Adrenaline stacks, I don't have to open with Storm Dragon. I can just go straight into Sky Shattering Blow. That's going to give me enough meter, followed by Tiger Strike. So I use my big damaging skill early. That's followed by Vicious Tiger Dance, which gives me more meter, followed by another meter generator, which is Moonflash Kick. That gives me enough meter for my second spender here, which is Tiger Emerges. Now I'm going to use my QWR. Sky Shattering first, followed by Storm Dragon, followed by Vicious Tiger. That gives me a little bit of meter left over, which I auto attack, and then I use my final spender, Blast Formation. So you're gonna notice in the real run, I was actually auto attacking before the QWR, and that was because I was still waiting for my Sky Shattering Blow to come off cooldown. So depending on your cooldown gem that you have on Sky Shattering Blow, you can actually use it first. So let me show you. So Storm Dragon, Sky Shattering, Whisper, Tiger Strike, Vicious, Moonflash Kick, next spender. I'm waiting, I'm weaving in auto attacks here, and then I have meter. Okay, so you can always weave in the auto attacks while you're waiting for your QW or R to come off cooldown. Rinse and repeat. That's the basic rotation for Striker. Now, there is an alternative rotation. It's really kind of the same rotation. You're just starting at a different spot. If for whatever reason, maybe you have some things that are off cooldown, you can always engage with Moonflash Kick this way and then start with your Tiger Emerges rotation, which is your QR into S. And then you can either rotate and go straight into your Blast Formation, or you can go into your Tiger Strike. If your Tiger Strike is open, definitely go into your Sky Shattering Whisper to Tiger Strike, and then rinse and repeat, right? So let me go over that again. So we're going to go this way. Moonflash into Tiger Emerges. Sky Shattering Whisper. Tiger Strike. Storm Dragon. Vicious Tiger into my third builder, Sky Shattering, into Blast Formation. So does that mess up the rotation a little bit in a parse? Yes. In a real raid scenario? No, not really, because most of your windows, most of your damage windows will consist of Sky Shattering, Lightning Whisper into Tiger, and that's it. Or that plus you'll have enough time for maybe 2 other builders and then an extra spender before the boss does something and you have to reposition and whatnot, right? Obviously, there are many times where you're going to be able to go into the 3rd spender. That's the whole purpose of a 3-spender striker. But you'll notice as you play damage windows, there are such things as damage windows. So just keep that in mind. There are really 3 segments. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to show you the 1-minute parse at 1802. With level 10 gems across the board. This is with Sky Shattering Blow as my cooldown gem. Okay, so there is my 2-minute parse with Deathblow Striker. Here is a single rotation parse with the Lazinith card set. We hit 20 mil peak. So that's the full rotation. Next, we're going to test the burst rotation. So here's the 4-second window. Next, we're going to see the 4 and 8-second window, which is going to consist of my first spender and my second spender. So I'll let you guys take a look at how much damage we do there. So we have about 12.6 peaking at roughly 20. I think we peaked at 20, right? Some of the crits didn't land at the end of Tiger Emerges, but that's okay. But that was the 7-8 second window. When it comes to Eso Flurry Striker, the difference is that instead of having 4 orbs, you now have 3, the standard 3, and each time you use a spender, you're only going to consume 1 orb, dealing an additional 18% damage if your Eso Flurry Engraving is at level 3. So this allows you to use consecutive spenders rather than a single spender that dumps your entire meter. All right, so now let's talk about Esoteric Flurry Striker. Now this is a very interesting point of discussion because you have your traditional swiftness-based Esoteric Flurry Striker, and you have what I believe will be the future meta of the class, the spec-focused Esoteric Flurry Striker. So in a nutshell, the swiftness-based Esoteric Flurry Striker, the traditional striker, Striker that most people play. The cheaper version. It has a higher floor but a lower ceiling. It is your typical high swiftness, low cooldown, pew 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 pew, constant high uptime damaging class, versus the Spec Eso Flurry Striker, which is essentially the same thing as Deathblow Striker, just a different version of it. Now, how different is it? Well, the burst damage from Spec Eso is actually higher than a Deathblow Striker, but the sustained damage, so damage over time, 1 minute, 2 minute parse, would be lower. And there is a downtime period between your rotations with Spec Eso, and that is the cost of having higher burst damage. I'm going to show you that spec, and that is the spec that we're going to be focusing on in this video, because I truly believe that it is the best spec to play right now for Eso Flurry Striker, and that swiftness is old news. So as far as the Spec Eso Flurry goes, like I said, it's played exactly like Deathblow Striker, so the engravings are the same. This is something that you could actually even try if you are currently playing Deathblow Striker. As long as you have your books maxed out for Eso Flurry Striker, all you would need to do, assuming that you built your character quote unquote correctly, if you have one class ring at level 3, then all you need to do is replace one ring, one accessory, and you can effectively play this class. You'll have to swap out maybe a couple of gems here to be more tailor-made to your rotation with Spec Eso, but outside of a couple of gems and one ring, it's really the same. It's really the same build, so it won't cost you an arm and a leg to actually try this if you are looking to try something other than Deathblow Striker. So one of the things that I want to talk about here and make very clear is the specialization stat. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this video, going over the stats section with Deathblow Striker, the same applies, obviously, because of the scaling with specialization. It is 3.22% damage. So I'll show you exactly how that works here. So you're going to see the spec stat right here. So let's just set this at a baseline 1700 spec, okay? So you're going to see that the esoteric skill damage is 54.72%, 54.72, okay? Remember that number, 54.72. We increase it by 100 points, 54.72 now turns into 57.93. So do the math. It works out to about 3.22% damage, I believe, and that has no diminishing return. So we're not even talking about the awakening skill damage. We're not even talking about the esoteric meter generating ability. We're just talking raw damage. So if you were to go the traditional swiftness Eso build, the traditional Eso build goes about, let's just call it 1250. It really depends on how many stats you have, the quality of your stuff, and even with swiftness builds, there's variation, right? 3 spender, 4 spender, a little bit more into crit, a little bit more into spec, all that stuff. But if we were to go to the 112, I call it that, build, which is crit, spec, and majority stat swiftness. Whoops, we're gonna put 1250 into swiftness, and that usually will put our spec at around 500 to 550. So let's just call it 550 spec, okay? So let's just call it 550 spec is what we're gonna have for the Swift Eso build. This is a pretty traditional cookie cutter spec swiftness build. Okay, so 550 spec, that does 17.7% damage on your spenders. If we were to go 1750, okay, let's just put this at 100. If we were to go 1750, which would be the spec focused build, give or take. Obviously, I add more. Again, it depends, but let's just use that as the baseline, comparing 550 to 750. Okay, this is 56.33% damage. That's a 38.63% difference. And if you're wondering what the difference was with spec, it's roughly around, at 1250 spec, it's roughly around a 26.8% cooldown reduction. At 1250 right here, the swiftness goes to 26.8%. So if we're calling it 0, it's like a 26, it's a 26% cooldown difference. Okay, now the thing is, attack speed and movement speed you're going to see during the rotation as we go over the skills, it doesn't really matter because we actually pick up almost max attack speed and movement speed during our rotation because of the way our runes are set up with this build. But the big kicker is, I guess you can value movement speed outside of the burst window, but it's essentially 26% cooldown reduction or 38.6% damage. It's like, what would you rather take? 26% cooldown reduction or almost 40% extra damage? Like, for me, it just, like, on paper, it doesn't make sense. Obviously, there's a lot more value in swiftness and being more forgiving, lower cooldowns. You can, which is exactly why I said it has a higher floor, lower ceiling. But to say that this, because, like, I think everyone will agree that Deathblow Striker is the better class than Swiftness Esoteric when it comes to end game real raids. If that's the case, and if you can agree that Deathblow Striker is better than Swiftness Eso Flurry Striker, then you would also have to agree that Spec Eso is better for those same reasons, because Spec Eso plays identical to the Deathblow Striker, but a little bit, it performs just, I would say it performs just under Deathblow Striker because of that downtime that you have between your rotations. But again, you actually deal a little bit more damage with your burst rotations. So there's that. That's why I wholeheartedly believe that Spec Eso outperforms Swiftness Eso. There's the numbers. You guys take that as you will. Now, we're going to be going over the rotation a little bit later in this video, but the first thing that I do want to say is that there is a little bit of a higher skill ceiling with Eso Flurry Spec, Eso Flurry Striker, because your rotation can change. You've got your full rotation, which kind of looks like this. And again, we're going to be going over this. You have your full rotation that kind of looks like that. Okay. But then you also have smaller DPS windows that would look like this. I didn't actually charge that all the way. It doesn't matter. Or like this. So the rotation actually changes a little bit depending on the DPS window that you have. So there is a little bit more of a higher skill ceiling than that versus like with Deathblow Striker. It's just always Sky Shattering, Whisper into Tiger Strike, right? So there's that. The other thing is that where it's more difficult and requires a higher skill ceiling, identifying what rotation you should use, it's also more forgiving when it comes to missing skills. So all of your damage essentially comes from these three spenders, which consumes one orb each. And as you can see right here, one Whisper is going to essentially give me full meter. Okay. And that will allow me to just use all my spenders at the same time. And as you can see, because I'm Spec, my Tiger Strikes hit pretty hard. They're not dealing that much less damage than my Deathblow counterpart right now. You can see this is literally the same build. I've set it to 1802, which is what I had my Deathblow Striker set to for the video with level 10 gems. Obviously, there is a good size difference with the damage, but it's not like it's like 100 mil to like 20 mil, right? It's not to that extent. So you're picking up the damage by being able to use multiple consecutive spenders in your DPS window, which is why the burst damage with Eso Flurry Striker Spec is actually higher than Deathblow Striker. And we're going to go over that in the rotation segment, but I just wanted to make that clear because it's more forgiving in the sense that as long as I land my Whisper, I can use all my spenders. There's the window. There's the window, right? So all the other skills here are pretty much just the filler. I can use Storm Dragon exclusively for just movement, and Sky Shattering, I could use it a little bit more for countering and obviously building extra meter, enough meter to use my Spiral Impact, and I could also use my Flash Heat Fang or whatever my final skill is. There's a little bit flexibility here with this skill, which we're going to go over in the skill section. They're just extra generators that I can have that aren't actually really necessary for my full rotation, because my full rotation is always going to line up with my Whisper of Lightning. Now, the only time you're kind of fucked is when you miss your Whisper of Lightning. So you got to make sure that you land that. Okay, so with that said, let's talk about the stats real quick. The stats are going to be identical to Deathblow Striker. I will say though, on your bracelet, it would be good to pick up swiftness. Is it necessary? No, but if you can get like an extra 100 swiftness or something from your bracelet, that would really help with the downtime, because there is a distinct weakness to this build, which is the downtime between your rotations, and that would just help maybe about a second or so. So there is that, but you want to just stack as many stats into Spec as possible. So it's just going to be the same build again, crit into the necklace and the rest Spec going all the way down. I'm in Trixie, and so right now I think it's my Deathblow accessory that I have here, but this would essentially be Esoteric Flurry instead of Deathblow +3, right? So if you were to take this ring, for example, this would obviously be Eso Flurry 3 instead of Deathblow 3. To break this down a little bit further, I've set my Spec to now 1617. 1618 is the goal to reach when it comes to your total Spec with Spec Eso. This will allow you, assuming that you've got the correct wealth rune setup, this will allow you to reach full meter with a single lightning whisper, assuming you have the wealth rune, gold wealth rune. If you're looking at my if you're watching the section before this, I did not have the correct wealth rune setup because I was still in my Deathblow setup. So but we weren't going over meter generating that much. So that is what it is, right? So, but just to make clear, you want the wealth rune, you want the yellow wealth rune on your Whisper of Lightning, which we'll go over again. But this at 1617 with the yellow wealth rune, okay, you're going to see that this is going to give me just short of full meter. I've got to auto attack once. Okay. If you don't have a yellow wealth rune, and or if you're not able to get to 1618, then you might as well just put a purple on there, okay, the purple wealth rune, and swap the Sky Shattering Blow wealth rune right here that I have, swap these two. So you'll put the gold on Sky Shattering Blow. But assuming that you can get it, that's what you would want. You'd want a legendary wealth rune on Lightning Whisper, and that will give you full meter at 1618 to get your 3 spenders out immediately. I want to say though, like, this isn't like the most important thing, and you could even argue that you'd rather have the yellow wealth rune on Sky Shattering Blow and purple on Lightning Whisper, and that's because like you're very rarely going to be sitting at 0 meters, because like what ends up happening is once I use my meters, let's say I've got full meter and I use this, I have 14 seconds to land a skill. Like the moment I land one auto attack on the target, by the time my Whisper is back up or my spenders are back up, I'm gonna have full meter, even if I have a purple wealth rune. To be perfectly honest, it's kind of, you could argue that it's pointless in a real raid scenario to have that. The only time that this is actually important to have full to be able to generate full meter without having the auto attack is on specific DPS windows in which you have like 4 or 5 seconds only and you have all this up. That's when you'd use this and go straight into your spenders. Okay, that's and that comes out every so often, so you can't say it's completely pointless, but I guess technically one could argue that you don't need to have a legendary wealth rune. Okay, so what if you have a purple wealth rune on your Whisper of Lightning? Well, if you have a purple wealth rune, you will need 1820 Spec, okay, to get full meter. 1819 will not be enough. For those of you who are wondering, as you can see, it's not enough. If we go 1820 here, that's gonna give us full meter. 1820 is the number. All right, so next let's go over the engravings. Again, the engravings are identical. If you want some more info on Cursed Doll over Adrenaline Keen Blunt, check out the Deathblow section of this guide because I go over everything in there, but it's literally going to be a copy pasta of Deathblow Striker. Now, if you're also wondering with how well Esoteric Flurry scales at level 1, is it better if you run a 4x3, 2x2, 1x1? It doesn't. No, it's not any better. I've already tested the damage parsing wise, and it performs the same as a 5x3. If there's any difference at all, it's extremely small. Granted, my sample size was relatively small, so I didn't parse damage on both specs for 2 hours each spec, right? Like I just did it a few times. The damage numbers are essentially the same. So 5x3, 4x3, 2x2, 1x1. If the 4x3, 2x2, 1x1 is cheaper, I guess go that way. But I prefer using a 5x3 and would recommend to go to do a 5x3, especially because Esoteric at the time of this video, Esoteric Flurry Striker books are extremely cheap. So it's really not difficult to get this maxed out. All right, so now let's go over the skills, runes, and tripods. Again, if you want to see what each skill does specifically, check out the Deathblow section. I will go over some of the skills that are unique to Eso, though, namely Spiral Impact and Flash Heat Fang. So the first thing we're going to take is obviously Storm Dragon Kick. We're going to take Excellent Mobility. Nothing different here. We're going to take the Rage Rune here. And we're also going to do the same with Sky Shattering Blow. No difference here. Purple Wealth Rune as well. Now, keep in mind that Storm Dragon, Sky Shattering Blow, and Spiral Impact, which we'll talk about here in a second, the tripods that you pick up, it increases your attack speed and movement speed by a lot. So you're going to actually be close to, if not max attack speed and movement speed. A lot of the times you're ready to use your spenders. Again, not every time because it depends on the DPS window, but if you're going through your full rotation, you're actually going to be maxed out. So that kind of lowers the emphasis on the need for attack speed and movement speed. But the Storm Dragon, the Excellent Mobility to start off the rotation with the rune, with the Rage Rune is really good. Okay, so that's what we take. And then to go over the other skills, that's the same as Deathblow. First, Esoteric Blast Formation, Tiger Emerges, Lightning Whisper, Tiger Strike. It's all the same. We're taking 1-3-2, maxed out. Quick Prep Single Hit, Ascension maxed out. Esoteric Extortion, Quick Prep, Fatal Lightning maxed out. Fatal Lightning being nothing there. And Tiger Strike having maxed out single hit, weak point detection, and charged kick. Okay, the only difference in runes being Lightning Whisper's Wealth Rune. Again, if you want more details, check out the Deathblow section of this. So let's talk about these two skills right here, Flash Heat Fang and Spiral Impact. Spiral Impact is a low cooldown skill that deals good damage. Okay, it deals pretty decent. It deals really good damage considering how low the cooldown is. Okay, and it does good weak point damage and good stagger damage as well, and it is an extra counter. On top of that, it also gives us attack speed and movement speed. And then Flash Heat Fang, this is a flex skill, so I would recommend either Flash Heat Fang or Moon Flash Kick. Some people even choose to take Esoteric Call of the Wind God. Here's the difference between those two skills. You do not want to change Spiral Impact. This is pretty much a staple. You're going to keep this. The skill to change is Flash Heat Fang. If you want to swap that out, you can go Moon Flash Kick and you can go Call of the Wind God. So let's go about this in order. Flash Heat Fang would be the middle option between those three skills. Flash Heat Fang does decent damage. Okay, it's going to do decent damage, and you're going to actually get attack speed by doing this. As you can see, this right here, I'm gaining more attack speed on top of the attack speed that I'm getting from everything else by using this. This is actually really helpful. Okay, and then you could do the Push Immune and then Adrenaline Rush. You could actually choose to take Sacred Attack instead of Push, instead of Weak Point Detection here if you wanted to, or you could actually swap out one of these other ones as well to take Blessing of the Wind, or there's a couple of options here. But for me, I personally like to take weak point detection, leaving blessing of the wind at 1, because again, attack speed, movement speed between the rune, between Sky Shattering Blow, between Flash Heat Fang, it's really kind of unnecessary to take this, and we can't max it out anyway. We have to give up one tripod here. So that's the tripod that I chose to give up, and we take Destruction Blow maxed out for extra damage. So this is more of the damage focused build. I chose to give up the tripods that give up attack speed. No point. If you want to be faster and take the attack speed and give up a little damage, since you're not doing that much damage on Flash Heat Fang and Spiral Impact anyways, that's totally fine. So as far as Flash Heat Fang goes, we are going to take this. You can choose to take Master Hit because it does comparable damage, but the benefit to Master Hit is that while it is a longer channeled skill, you can cancel it sooner than you can with Weak Point Detection. If you take Weak Point Detection, you're kind of locked into that animation unless you have a space, versus with Master Hit, you can channel it and then you can end it a little bit earlier. That's kind of a benefit for a real raid situation. Okay, so there is that. Now, Flash Heat Fang, this is going to give us additional weak point damage, and we are not the best with weak point or stagger, and it gives us a mid to high stagger attack, which is pretty good. On top of that, you could either take quick recharge or you could take the overwhelm rune for additional attack speed, which, by the way, Tiger emerges. I'm going Gale Wind, by the way, because I have a lot more stagger damage in this build, so I don't need Tiger emerges. I could use Tiger emerges and have that in Gale Wind. Not to mention, I'm trying to use 3 spenders consecutively with Eso Flurry Striker spec, so Gale Wind just makes more sense with this build. We're gonna go Flash Heat Fang with quick recharge. This helps the downtime just a little bit. You're gonna see that in the rotation section of this build. And yeah, this is pretty much option number 1. This is what I would call the neutral option. Decent damage, extra utility with weak point stagger. Okay, and the cooldown isn't ridiculous. All right, it lines up pretty well. The other option is to take Moonflash Kick. Moonflash Kick is going to do less damage than Flash Heat Fang a little bit. And again, it's like a difference of a couple of million damage, and Flash Heat Fang doesn't do that much damage to begin with. Now, what you lose out by taking Moonflash Kick is the extra stagger damage. It is the a little bit of extra damage as well, and the weak point, which whatever, that's not the biggest deal in the world, but you gain a lot of utility. You gain gap closing utility. You guys know exactly what this skill does. I went over it in the Deathblow section if you want to check that out. You can take this, but keep in mind, whatever skill you take, you have to give up one of the tripods. So the tripod that you would most likely give up would probably be White Flame Kick here, because you don't need that extra meter generating ability from Moonflash Kick with Spec Eso, because it's a filler skill. So this gives you the ability to have both Storm Dragon and Moonflash Kick as engaging skills, which gives you a lot more utility. You could argue that it's better. So Moonflash Kick, definitely an option. If not, you want to do a little bit more damage, a little bit more attack speed, a little bit more utility, you can go Flashy Fang. Now, if you want to min-max damage and go even the extra mile, then you can replace it with Call of the Wind God. This is what we call the 5 spender. I would not personally recommend this, because what happens is that even though you have extra skills on flex to be able to land and build meter, that it's still good to have that. It's still good to have that extra forgiveness. If you take Call of the Wind God, now one of your generators are now a spender for minimal damage. If you land everything with Call of the Wind God, you will be doing more damage than your Flash Heat Fang, but I'm going to tell you this right now, not by much. It's not the biggest. It's like again, it depends on what hit actually crits versus Flash Heat Fang. Almost everything's going to crit, but it's really not that much of a difference when it comes to damage. When equally spec'd, you're talking about like anywhere from 9 mil damage to 15 mil damage with Call of the Wind God. Comparatively speaking, if that's what your Call of Wind God is doing, your Flash Heat Fang is going to hit for like 5 to 9 mil damage. So considering your Tiger Strikes are going to be doing 50 mil, it's not the biggest deal. So really, if you want to min-max damage, you would take Call of Wind God, but you're really losing utility. You still have your stagger, but you're losing that forgiveness in your build for essentially pointless DPS, if that makes sense. Okay, at least the difference between Moonflash Kick and Flash Heat Fang is you get attack speed and you get weak point and you get more stagger, but with and you get another skill that gives you super armor, by the way. But with Call of the Wind God, you just have another spender, and it just makes the entire build a lot less forgiving to play. I would not personally recommend it, but it does do more damage. Now, to put that into perspective, I've parsed damage 1 minute parse and a 2 minute parse with both Call of the Wind God and Flash Heat Fang, and the difference in the parse damage is minimal. It's actually minimal. It's like it's barely noticeable, because there's so many other factors to Call of the Wind God. Like the last hit out of that entire channel has to crit, right? And if that doesn't crit, then you do smudge damage. It just really is. Now, Flash Heat Fang, the last hit is the hardest hitting of Flash Heat Fang as well, but Flash Heat Fang, again, it's not doing that much damage to begin with, and it's just not that important in a real world scenario. Also, in a real world scenario, Call of the Wind God, a long channeled hold, it's like, how often do you actually get that opportunity, let alone have that whole 2.5 seconds, have all of that land on the back, because it has to land on the back the entire time, and then that would be the damage difference that I had just mentioned. So if that doesn't happen, or especially if the last hit doesn't actually proc with Call of Wind God on the back, then or even crit, then the damage differential is non-existent, right? So for me, it's a no-brainer. I would take Moon Flash Kick or Flash Heat Fang any day of the week. Also, keep in mind, if you do take Call of Wind God, you would give up Lightning Storm. You would leave Lightning Storm at 1, and then you would go Growth Attack into Raging Storms for maximum damage. This tripod actually does nothing. It's a waste of a tripod. So there's really no point in taking it. To go over the runes really quick, one more time, quick recharge on Flash Heat Fang for that downtime. And I like to take Bleed on Spiral Impact. Spiral Impact actually does pretty good damage. Okay, 11 mil on like a 7-second cooldown, pretty damn good. Okay, if you ask me, it's pretty good. Not to mention you get attack speed, movement speed with it, and you get extra damage from the bleed. Pretty decent value. Okay, so next let's go over the gems. We're gonna go cooldown on Storm Dragon, Whisper of Lightning, Lightning Whisper, Tiger Strike, Tiger Emerges, Blast Formation, and Flash Heat Fang. And for attack damage gems, we are going into Spiral Impact, Flash Heat Fang, and the rest of our spenders. Pretty straightforward. All right, so next we're gonna go over the rotation first in real time, and then we're gonna break it down. I'll walk you through the whole thing, okay? That's the rotation. As you can see, we've got about 5 seconds before Spiral Impact comes back up. I'll walk you through this here real quick. We're opening with Storm Dragon Kick and Sky Shattering Blow. You don't really need to do this, but when you get the card set especially, it is good to do this to try and proc the Lazenith buff. You don't actually need it to build meter. You're using these skills for the purpose of your adrenaline stacks and your Lazenith. If you don't have it, you can always just start the rotation from Lightning Whisper, which is kind of like a different rotation. But assuming that you are using generators to open, then you're going to use Spiral Impact and Blast Formation to start. This is why I was saying that some rotations are a little bit different. There's multiple rotations. But the parsing rotation, the clown bingo rotation is going to be as follows. I've procced Lazenith right there. It's that yellow buff right here. So Storm Dragon, the Sky Shattering Blow into Spiral Impact, and then our spenders, but using Blast Formation before Lightning Whisper, and then Lightning Whisper into Tiger Strike into Tiger Emerges, and then rinse and repeat, right? Then we go back into these, into your ERWQ, and you just wait for the cooldowns to come back off, right? So it's Storm Dragon, Sky Shattering, Spiral Impact, Blast Formation, Lightning Whisper, Tiger Strike, Tiger Emerges into my Flash Heat Fang, and then Spiral Impact, and then I'm just waiting at this point for the cooldowns to be back up. I do have Spiral Impact. Once Spiral Impact's back up, rinse and repeat, go back into Blast Formation after Spiral, Lightning Whisper, Tiger Strike, Tiger Emerges, Flash Heat Fang, and then there's the rotation. And that just continually repeats, and you will obviously see by the time I use these two skills, I have to wait for Spiral Impact to line up with Blast Formation and all this stuff to come back off, cooldown, so that I can use it again. So there's the cookie cutter. I'm going to parse damage rotation. Now, here are a couple of variations. Variation number 1 is if I do open with like Sky Shattering, then I'm going to go into Spiral Impact, okay? Or I could skip it depending on the damage window and go straight into Blast Formation, into Whisper, into Tiger Strike, into Tiger Emerges. If I'm a little bit shorter on time and I don't have anything, then I could go straight into Lightning Whisper, into Blast Formation, into Tiger Strike, into Tiger Emerges. If I know I have a very short window, like a 3-second window, then obviously Tiger Strike, Lightning Whisper into Tiger Strike, and then Blast Formation here, if that's like a really like short 2-3 second window. If I know I have a little bit more time, then maybe I'll go Whisper of Lightning into Blast Formation first, into Tiger Strike, into Tiger Emerges. So we're talking about seconds here, and this is why the proper rotation is going to kind of depend on your skill and the knowledge of the fight, because at the end of the day, if you can open with like a Sky Shattering Blow, then with just Sky Shattering Blow, I have 1 meter, or I've got one ball, and then I can go straight into this, right? I don't need to use Spiral Impact in that rotation, in that window, right? So like more times than none, I'll usually go Sky Shattering Blow into Blast Formation, into Whisper of Lightning, and Tiger Strike into Tiger Emerges. Or on shorter windows, I'll go Whisper of Lightning into all 3 spenders. And if I really want to ensure the Tiger Strike, then I'll use Tiger Strike first. But let's say I know my Lazinth card proc is available. If this doesn't land, oh, it landed. So then I'll go straight into Tiger Strike, into Tiger Emerges, into this. If you guys found that helpful, like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys thought in the section below. Once again, I do apologize for not making this like super nice edited. In my mind, originally I wanted to make this like just very interactive, like a guide, rather than just me on camera going over the skills, talking to you as if it's like a one-on-one chat. But unfortunately, I just did not have the time, so I do apologize for that. Catch me on Twitch. I'm streaming on that platform live almost every single day of the week. So if you have any additional questions, if I don't answer it in the comment section, come find me on Twitch and I will do my best to help you there. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.